is. The enigmatic Nazca Lines, etched into the desert floor of Peru, remain one of history's great mysteries. We begin our broadcast.
The Nazca Lines are some of the most famous ancient markings on Earth. Cut into the dry plains of southern Peru more than 1,000 years ago, they form enormous shapes that can only be fully seen from the air. For decades, people have asked the same question. Why were they made, and who were they made for? The internet is full of dramatic answers. But what archaeologists actually believe is more grounded, more careful, and in many ways more interesting than the viral version of the story. What the Nazca Lines actually are. Before looking at the theories, it helps to understand what is actually out there in the desert. The Nazca Lines are a vast collection of geoglyphs, which is the technical term for designs made on the ground at a large scale. They cover roughly 450 square kilometers of arid plateau between the towns of Nazca and Palpa, in a region that almost never sees rain. The dry climate is one of the main reasons the lines have survived for so long. The designs fall into several categories. There are straight lines, some of them stretching for several kilometers in perfectly maintained paths. There are large geometric shapes such as trapezoids, triangles, and rectangles. And there are figurative drawings, which are the ones most people recognize. These include a hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, a whale, a tree, and a strange standing figure that researchers often call the astronaut, although that nickname tells you more about the 20th century than it does about the people who made it. Most of the lines were created by removing the dark, oxidized stones on the surface of the desert and exposing the lighter sand and soil underneath. It is a simple technique, but on this scale, it required planning, coordination, and a deep familiarity with the land. Why the question keeps going viral. The reason the Nazca Lines keep generating attention online is not hard to understand. They are visually stunning. They are best seen from the sky. And they sit in a part of the world that for people unfamiliar with Andean history can feel mysterious by default. That combination has produced an enormous range of theories. Some people argue the lines are runways for ancient aircraft. Others claim they were guidance systems for visitors from outer space. There are videos suggesting the figures match constellations exactly, or that the lines hide messages that can only be read with modern technology. A few popular books going back to the late 1960s have built entire frameworks around the idea that ancient peoples could not possibly have made these designs without outside help. These ideas spread because they tap into something real. The lines genuinely are difficult to see from the ground. They genuinely required effort that seems disproportionate to a small desert society. And the phrase ancient mystery does a lot of work on social media. But the version of the story that goes viral is rarely the version that matches the evidence. What people are often told. Before turning to what archaeologists actually believe, it is worth laying out the most common claims that circulate online. The first is that the lines were made for beings who could see them from above, which usually means extraterrestrials or some forgotten civilization with the ability to fly. The second is that the lines align perfectly with stars and planets, encoding an astronomical map. The third is that the designs are too precise to have been made without advanced tools. And the fourth is that the local Nazca people, who lived in the region between roughly 200 BCE and 600 CE, were too primitive to have planned and executed something on this scale. Each of these claims sounds compelling in a short video. Each of them collapses under closer examination, but they spread because they feel like the kind of answer a strange ancient site deserves. The truth, as it usually does, takes longer to explain. Who actually made them? The people responsible for most of the Nazca Lines were the Nazca culture, an Andean society that flourished on the southern coast of Peru from around 200 BCE to 600 CE. They are the same people who produced the colorful pottery, finely woven textiles, and underground aqueduct systems known as puquios that are still partly in use today. There is also evidence that some of the older geoglyphs in the region were made by an even earlier culture, the Paracas, who came before the Nazca. Researchers have identified Paracas-era designs that tend to appear on hillsides rather than open plains, often depicting human figures. The Nazca then continued and expanded the tradition over the following centuries, adding the larger animal figures and the long straight lines that the area is now famous for. This is one of the most important corrections to the viral version of the story. The lines were not made by a single mysterious group at a single moment. They were made over hundreds of years by communities who lived in the region, raised crops, built irrigation systems, and developed a complex artistic and religious culture. Their pottery and textiles show many of the same animals that appear in the lines, which strongly suggests the geoglyphs grew out of an existing visual tradition rather than arriving from somewhere else. How the lines were actually made. One of the persistent claims online is that the lines are too precise to have been made with simple tools. The archaeological evidence does not support this. Researchers have shown in field experiments and through detailed surveys that the techniques used at Nazca were within reach of any organized group with rope, wooden stakes, and patience. The basic method involved planning a design at small scale, then scaling it up using stakes and lines stretched across the desert floor. Once the outline was set, workers would walk along it, lifting the dark surface stones and moving them to the edges. The cleared paths and shapes are usually only a few centimeters deep. The combination of windless conditions, almost no rainfall, and the way the desert surface naturally locks the stones in place is what kept the designs intact for so long. In some cases, archaeologists have found wooden stakes still in place at the ends of long lines dating to the Nazca period. Worn footpaths run along the edges of many of the figures, showing that people walk them regularly. None of this requires advanced technology. It requires people who knew the land, knew their tools, and treated the work as part of their cultural and religious life. If you are finding this useful and you want more grounded breakdowns like this one, take a moment to subscribe. It helps the channel reach more people who care about getting these stories right, and it means the next investigation will land in your feed when it is ready. New discoveries keep happening. The Nazca region is not a finished story. New geoglyphs have been discovered repeatedly in recent years, particularly through the use of drones and high-resolution satellite imagery. In 2019, a Japanese research team led by Yamagata University, working with IBM, used artificial intelligence to scan the desert and identified more than 140 previously unknown figures in the Nazca and Palpa region. In 2024, the same team announced an even larger find, reporting hundreds of additional figures detected through machine learning analysis of aerial images. Many of these newly identified figures are smaller and harder to spot from the ground. They show humans, animals, and what appear to be domesticated species, often placed near old footpaths. The pattern matters. It suggests that smaller figures were placed where people would have encountered them on foot, while the larger, more famous figures sat further out on the open plain. This is the kind of detail that quietly reshapes the story. If many of the geoglyphs were placed along walking routes, then they were never really meant to be seen only from the sky. They were meant to be encountered on the ground by people moving through the landscape on foot. The astronomy theory. One of the earliest serious attempts to explain the lines came from the German-born researcher Maria Rieke, who spent decades living near the site and protecting it from damage. She believed the lines functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, with specific lines marking the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and major stars. Her work brought international attention to Nazca and helped lead to its protection as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994. Later research, however, has been more cautious. In the 1960s and 1970s, the American astronomer Gerald Hawkins ran a statistical study of the alignments and concluded that the number of lines matching significant astronomical events was roughly what you would expect by chance, given how many lines there are. That does not mean astronomy played no role at all. Some lines do appear to align with the solstices or with the rising of certain stars. But the idea that the entire site is a coordinated astronomical map is not supported by the data. Most archaeologists today accept that astronomy was probably one element among several, not the single key that unlocks the meaning of the lines. The water and ritual theory. A more widely accepted set of theories today connects the lines to water. The Nazca lived in one of the driest regions on the planet, and survival depended on managing scarce water supplies. They built the Puquios, an underground aqueduct system that drew groundwater across long distances and is still partly functioning today. Researchers, including the American archaeologist Anthony Aveni and the Peruvian scholar Johann Reinhard, have argued that many of the lines and figures are connected to rituals around water and fertility. Some of the long, straight lines appear to point toward sources of water in the surrounding mountains. Some of the trapezoidal shapes seem to align with seasonal water flows. And the worn footpaths along the figures suggest that people walked them as part of ceremonies, possibly asking for rain or honoring deities believed to control the climate. Excavations at the ends of some lines have uncovered offerings, including pottery, shells from the coast, and the remains of food. This is the kind of evidence that points strongly toward ritual use. People were not just drawing on the desert, they were using these shapes as places of ceremony. The procession theory. Closely tied to the ritual idea is the theory that the lines were processional paths. The figures of animals are typically drawn as a single continuous line, the kind a person could walk along without stepping over the design. Many researchers believe these figures were walked, possibly in religious processions, with the figure itself serving as a sacred path. This fits with the broader picture of Andean religious practice, where pilgrimages, ritual walking, and the act of moving across landscape were deeply meaningful. The figures were not just symbols to be looked at, they were paths to be experienced. It also helps answer the question that drives most of the viral theories. If the lines were not meant to be seen from above, why are they so big? The answer most archaeologists now offer is that they were not designed to be viewed all at once. They were designed to be walked in pieces over time. The aerial view that defines the modern image of Nazca is a perspective the people who made the lines almost certainly never had. Why the alien theory does not hold up? It is worth addressing the alien runway idea directly because it remains one of the most repeated claims online. The argument, made famous by the 1968 book Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Daniken, is that the lines look like landing strips and must therefore have been built for visiting spacecraft. There are several problems with this. The first is practical. The Nazca Plain is soft. The surface is loose stone and sand. No aircraft, ancient or modern, could land on it without sinking or kicking up enormous dust clouds. The supposed runways are not flat in the way a runway needs to be. The second problem is that the figurative designs, the hummingbird and the monkey and the spider, would be useless as runways. They are not straight, they are not the right shape, and they overlap with each other. The third is that the designs match Nazca pottery and textiles closely. The same animals appear in their visual culture. The lines are not foreign to Nazca art. They are part of it. The alien theory also tends to assume that ancient peoples could not have made impressive things on their own, which is an idea that has been quietly discredited again and again as archaeology has caught up with cultures that were once dismissed.
Travel. The ancient geoglyphs have been naturally preserved for over 2,000 years.
What remains uncertain? There are still real questions that experts do not agree on. We do not know exactly how the meaning of the lines changed over the centuries they were made. We do not know which figures correspond to which deities, or which lines were considered most important. We do not have written records from the Nazca themselves, because their culture did not use writing in the way later Andean societies did. Most of what we know comes from archaeology, from comparison with their pottery and textiles, and from analogies with later Andean traditions that may or may not apply. There is also ongoing debate about how the different types of lines fit together. Were the long straight lines and the animal figures part of the same ceremonial system, or did they serve different purposes? Different scholars give different answers, and the discoveries from drone surveys are still being absorbed into the broader picture. What the evidence actually supports. If you set aside the dramatic theories and stay close to what the evidence shows, a clearer picture emerges. The Nazca Lines were created over many centuries by the Paracas and Nazca cultures, both of whom lived in the region and produced rich artistic traditions. The lines were made using simple tools and methods that any organized community could have managed. They were almost certainly tied to religion and to the desperate importance of water in a desert landscape. Many of them functioned as ritual paths, walked during ceremonies. Some had astronomical alignments, but the site as a whole is not a single astronomical chart. They were not landing strips. They were not made by outsiders. They were the work of the people who lived there. This is not a less interesting answer. In some ways, it is more interesting because it forces us to take an ancient society seriously on its own terms. The Nazca were not a mystery to themselves. They knew exactly what they were doing. The mystery is on our side because we are trying to read the meaning of a culture whose own voices we no longer have. A grounded takeaway. The story of the Nazca Lines is a good example of how the loud version of an ancient mystery often pulls in the wrong direction. The viral claims about runways, aliens, and impossible precision do not survive contact with the evidence. The careful version, built up by decades of fieldwork, is quieter. It involves a real culture, a real landscape, real water shortages, and real ceremonies performed by real people walking on real paths. None of that requires anything supernatural. All of it requires the willingness to listen to what the ground is actually telling us. That does not mean every question is answered. There is still uncertainty about the exact meaning of specific figures, about how the system of lines evolved over time, and about how much of the ceremonial life of the Nazca we will ever be able to recover. New tools, especially drone imaging and AI analysis, are still adding figures to the list. The story is not finished, but the framework most archaeologists now work within is solid, and it does not need extraterrestrials to make sense. If you found this kind of careful breakdown useful, the best thing you can do is subscribe and stay around. There is more like this on the way, and the channel grows when people who actually want clear answers stay for the next one. So here's the question to leave you with. Do you think sites like Nazca will keep generating wild theories no matter how much evidence comes in? Or do you think clearer information online will eventually shift how people see them? And once you know the lines were probably walked rather than viewed from above, does that change the way you picture the people who made them?
The mystery of the Nazca Lines continues to intrigue scientists and tourists alike. We hope you enjoyed this look at Peru's enigmatic desert. Good night.